What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity down at Consensus. Equally excited to be with Claudio, who is the ICP Hub lead out of Mexico from the Internet Computer Ecosystem. Claudio, I would love if you could give us just a little intro of yourself and tell us just a little bit about what you do within the ICP Hub in Mexico before we dive deeper into the weeds here.
Yeah, background is 20 plus years building software. The last 4 years building crypto. I was early investor in a couple of the CoinList offerings. So that got me into building. The perfect excuse, right? You put skin in the game and then you try to make it worth something, right? And for me, it's also all about building. And so back in 2021, I co-founded a liquid staking platform called Metapool. Some of our investors were also early investors in IC. And back in 2022, we participated in the Supernova Hackathon, didn't win. Was a great learning experience. And now we're about to launch liquid staking on ICP. And we gotten into a really close relationship with Definity Foundation. And we said, hey, you want help growing the ecosystem in ICP and all LATAM? And that's how we started with the ICP Hub LATAM, which is now ICP Hub Mexico. And under our supervision, there's a spoke in Argentina and also the spoke in Colombia. And so here we are, at Consensus.
And I'm curious, just so that we can kind of paint a broader picture for us, how many hubs are there globally for IC?
So there's 24 hubs and there's around close to 9 to 10 spokes. So spokes are going to be regions that have the potential to lead the whole region. Let's say, knock on wood, that something happened and ICP Hub Mexico is no longer operational. So it's either the spoke from Colombia or the spoke from Argentina that will take the lead, right? It's helping the community be as decentralized as possible, but also taking into account the whole region as well. Somebody to pick up the tab at the end of the day.
I think one of the most difficult things in the blockchain space is trying to relay what the technology is or what it's going to mean to people. So when you look at Internet Computer and kind of the underlying technology here, maybe if you could just provide us an overview of what makes Internet Computer unique and how it's going to, have kind of a social impact on people kind of across the globe in the future.
So I think one of the first things that got me started into understanding the potential of Internet Computer Protocol is something that is very difficult. It's a grand vision where decentralized cloud storage, right? That's the end game is there, right? And you're thinking as a software, as an ecosystem as a whole, then who are the cloud storage providers, right? They're the big ones, right? You have Amazon, you have Google Cloud, and then you have Azure, right, with Microsoft. Between those three, everything that runs in this industry runs on top of their infra. And so it's important to, let's say in Mexico, if for one reason or another they deem Microsoft 360 to be illegal, then companies using it are blocked to doing that, right? And so that is something that we need to understand that we're taking now for granted because access is there, but there will be at a certain moment in time where decentralized cloud storage is going to be an issue that we're going to be facing as an industry as a whole, right? Digital industry. And so for me, that grand vision was something that attracted me a lot to the IC ecosystem. And more importantly, just the amount of knowledge around distributed technology being built. We have cryptographers as well, really top-notch researchers in the Definity Foundation. And so definitely the geek powers, the geek brains are there, right? Now it's our job as hub leaders, how do we bring that technology down to a level where end users or anyone can use it without even knowing that there's blockchain technology behind it powering, right? Yeah. So that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, throughout this space, we always hear these kind of catchphrases. I don't want to say they're catchphrases. I just think that they're really romanticized views based on, where we might be versus where we are. one of which is obviously interoperability. So when you think about interoperability and how these different ecosystems are going to interact, I found it interesting to kind of look into the chain fusion aspects within Internet Computer and how some of these underlying networks can operate on the Internet Computer. Can you maybe just give us an overview of chain fusion and what that represents?
So for me, one of the big, and coming from a builder perspective, right? So we launched a liquid staking token. We started over at Near, now we went EVM, and going through this multi-chain, cross-chain process, it is a daunting task, right? You're building for each technology stack as you go. Chain fusion allows you to do that without going through the hurdles of building specific smart contracts on each and every one of them. More importantly, letting them run on your own infrastructure, which is one of the issues that we have right now with Metapool, right? It's like, we need to choose a provider for this, you need to choose a provider for that, RPC servers for this, then Oracle services for that. And so that fragmentation on all the technology stack is what chain fusion brings to builders, right? You build it on the IC. Yes, you can deploy smart contracts running on your own trusted infrastructure, which is what ICP is allowing builders to have, right? Yes, there's a steep learning curve, right? I do need to acknowledge that. It's not something that out of the get-go developers are going to be familiar with. And so it takes a little bit of patience, but that's why the ICP hubs are all over the world, right? You have a trusted partner that has not only, I'm not going to say mastered, because it's a very, very strong word, but has at least a few years of experience that will help you navigate through building on top of this technology, right? But chain fusion, what it does is that it allows your project not to be constrained just on one technology, on one stack.
I think it's interesting, especially coming, from Mexico, but then having, you mentioned spokes in Colombia and then El Salvador. And you get into things like DeFi and you get into things like banking the unbanked. And if you look at different exotic corridors, what is that going to open up for the citizens that are living in some of these areas to be able to participate in at least some sort of financial system?
So I think one of the biggest learnings during this past 3 years building on DeFi is the following. We're not here to unbank no one. Because like banking the unbanked, like no, we're allowing them to understand the most important change in paradigm that crypto brings, which is you will be the owner of all the digital value that you create online. So it's not about bringing somebody to be banked. No, it is for them to be sovereign individuals. And I think here lies one of the biggest opportunities that IC brings is that you can control your own identity through the Internet Identity Technology Stack, and it's compatible with many devices that you have. If you have face recognition, then it will recognize that. If you do fingerprint, right, or if you're doing just passcode, whatever, right, in your different devices. And so I think, as I said, there's a learning curve that everybody that's been onboarded to the IC needs to go through. But once you pass that chasm, then it's about people really understanding, yes, I can control all the digital value that I create online. It is mine. And if somebody wants to pick into it, if somebody wants to engage with it, they need my express permission in order for them to engage. And so I think sovereign individuals is something that is not to be discussed lightly, because it does entitle something that is very important. It is, can you teach individuals how they can be the custodians of the value that they create online? Which is not an easy task, because everybody wants to go and email or call somebody in order to reset their passwords. And here is where all this crypto technology has a big chasm, and that as an ecosystem and as an industry, we need to come together and to start to educate individuals on how they can be sovereign individuals, right? And then we can go to the buzzwords and catchphrases, as you say. But the most important part is we're allowing folks, individuals and organizations, to retain all of the value that they create online. And I think that's a great change that I want to be part of.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a massive responsibility, but it's a huge opportunity too, because we hear tokenization isn't new to the past 12 months in this space. But we've been talking about tokenization for years. But it's not just tokenization of financial aspects. It's tokenization of data. It's tokenization of like identity, like you mentioned.
Exactly.
I mean, so then it becomes really important to have, number one, a level of security, a level of decentralization, a level of privacy, all the things that you need to kind of tie together to basically change the internet of information to the internet of value.
Exactly.
I'm curious for, looking into your guys' ecosystem as well. There's an aspect called Utopia that's coming about soon. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what Utopia represents within IC?
So for us, and I'm going to talk more for our for Latin America, right? For us is, and I think the latest announcement of bringing USDC to Shanky cryptography, that's a good first initial step, because you need to understand that access to a dollar-pegged stablecoin, it is important for our region, because we are always looking, and we have a necessity, a need to escape inflation, right? So, and this is, I'm going to quote my co-founder on this, like when 2 years ago, 2022, when the bear market was hitting, he was, I don't know why people are so obsessed and like panicking, man. This is a normal day in Argentina, man. Like we own a shitcoin, right? in the sense that what something is priced right now, tomorrow is going to be higher, right? And so inflation really hits hard. And I think here is where Utopia comes in, right? Can we allow any organization, individual, and I'm not going to say to tokenize, but digitize like migrate their value to a digital asset, right? Is that going to be a token? Is that going to be an NFT? Is that going to come through certain derivatives as well, right? I do not know. But what I do know is that first, the killer app for crypto, it is allowing people to escape their hyperinflation, right? To escape, to not be, and I'm not talking about escaping, is to become a sovereign individual, for them to control all the value that they generate. And more importantly, can they interact with organizations that are allowing them to bring this value to them, and then to hopefully create more value or disperse that value to other peers or citizens, or however you want to call it. And so I think here we're doing stuff in El Salvador, allowing folks to have access to Shanky BTC. We're allowing folks in Honduras and in Peru to also have access to CKBTC and start to transact with it and create what we're calling circular economies. And so I think that's what Utopia is bringing. We're allowing, for example, right now, a vending machine in Mexico to sell coffee directly to consumers. And we're calling it kind of like the Shopify for vending machines, where somebody that is producing coffee can now actually have the means to sell it direct without no intermediaries in the process, right? No middleman. And I think that opens up a lot of possibilities in the sense of value distribution to be more equally distributed. So those are the things that Utopia brings. Now, can we bring private and public organizations to come and use the technology? We're doing that in Aguascalientes. We're helping with digitizing the scholarships that are being given. So students will have an internet identity, and it's going to be, will provide transparency into how the government, how public organizations are giving out scholarships in Aguascalientes. So that's a city in Mexico, in mainland Mexico. And so that's some of the small things that we're doing with Utopia, and more importantly, bringing that vision that Definity and Dominic Williams has down to a level where it's useful for everyday citizens, right? Private and public organizations to use it, to leverage what we're calling decentralized cloud, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. And we always hear the term killer app. And you bring up an interesting point. I mean, I think the killer app is the choice. It's the choice to use something that empowers yourself and taking that custody.
Retaining the value that we create online.
Yeah.
Because that's something that we've been sadly blindfolded into it, right? Everybody are giving all their information to Facebook, to Google, right? To WhatsApp, to Instagram.
Programmed to accept the status quo.
Exactly. Yeah. And now it is time to retain that value. Yeah. And in order, if somebody wants to sell my data, fine, but I need to be part of the value. I'm part of the value creation process, and I should get most of the value being distributed as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you can start digging really far down the rabbit hole as far as once user choices and once we are empowered by our own data, then you get into really interesting kind of incentivization models where it's not just going to the big powers that be, but users are actually rewarded for the choices that they choose to make, not the ones they're being led to make.
Exactly.
I'm curious from your standpoint if you could just tell us a little bit of some of the milestones that you feel like the IC network has had so far, and then what you're looking forward to in the future as you kind of lead us out here.
So, as a hub, we've done a couple of boot camps. We've done a couple of hackathons. What I've been most proud of is seeing small teams starting to get familiar with the technology and start to build useful tools. Like, for example, we have one, it's an all-woman team that they built. So in beehives, and this is very important. This was under a agro vertical on a hackathon. And so beekeepers, what they do is they pull up the hive, right? And they see like the hexagons, right? And they try to see it because bees make perfect hexagons. When the hexagons are starting to deform, that is the first sign that the beehive is under an attack from maybe that the bees are sick, or that the hive is getting deteriorated. And so they're using computer vision to take a snapshot every so or so minutes. And so then it uploads into the IC cloud, does its machine learning stuff, and then comes back with a result. So if they start to see a lot of hexagons being deformed, then they know that there's a pattern here. And so then they take a snapshot of the bee itself, and then on the main body, they can know if it's sick, if the bee is sick. And so they do a mesh between all the hives, and then they can understand and be very proactive in curing those diseases.
Wow.
And so that's something that came out of students from Aguascalientes, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm more proud of is understanding that talent lies everywhere. The only thing that you need to do, and that we as ICP Hubs are doing, is empowering them with the tools, the knowledge, and the access for them to build that solution. And so I think that's something that I'm very proud of, that we built all this process they can go from ideation to a building stage, and now the time's come for them to go on mainnet, right? And then offer the services, not on a local level, but on a global scale, right? And that's what the ICP Hubs network is building. And then that we have successfully achieved up to a certain point, and it's now time to really level up and start to deploy large-scale smart contracts on the IC. So
it's really interesting. I mean, to look further out, it's almost like, what is the responsibility of, people develop and people build because they like building cool stuff. But really, at the end of the day, if you look 10 or 15 or 20 years out, there is kind of like inherent responsibility, because like building sound infrastructure, and then obviously building better and better and better tooling to make it more easier for other people to build, is really kind of what's going to be interesting to watch. You mentioned students and all of the important stuff within bees are pretty much driving planet sustainability. So, it'll be really cool to watch how all of these different aspects of, social impact really start to hit. So, Claudio, it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit down and interview with you today. Again, guys, check out all of the great work that the ICP Hub out of Mexico is doing, and had the opportunity today to talk to Claudio, who is the ICP Hub lead out of Mexico, and appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.